It's time once again to overanalyze the new Yellowjackets episode. This week served up quite a few new twists and turns, but is there anything more under the surface? Well, put an antler crown on me, because I'll be the judge of that. This is Double Issues. 12 Angry Girls and One Drunk Travis, as the title, is a clear homage to the movie 12 Angry Men, a movie in which a jury decides the fate of a young man accused of killing his father. Since a jury has to be unanimous, a single juror stops them from immediately finding the boy guilty. In Yellowjackets, the girls do the opposite. Instead of the votes changing into the innocent verdict, though, they shift into the guilty one. What starts off as Van, Melissa, and Shauna voting guilty slowly turns into all of the girls voting guilty. Paralleling 12 Angry Men, the longer they redo the votes, the more exhausted everyone becomes, the more willing they are to shift sides. We see them redo the vote time after time, even breaking for lunch, and the whole trial mirrors their time in the wilderness. The longer they're out there, the less inhibition they feel, the more willing they are to cross certain lines. The duos we see pushing for Ben's guilt are very interesting, considering it's the two couples. We see Van, Shauna, and Melissa vote guilty after Ty rallied them against Ben. Van will stick by Ty's side no matter what, and she's been one of the biggest arguers that Coach Ben is a quote, raging psychopath. I'm still thinking that other Ty was the cause of the fire, but if the cause of the fire is revealed, I don't think it'd be shown this season, since Jasmine Savoy Brown posted about the other Ty theory on an Instagram story, and if it was true or true to their knowledge, that would have been way too big a spoiler. Other Ty wants the same things that Ty wants, so upon seeing her not becoming the leader and facing that disappointment, put them in a situation that only Ty could fix because Ty knew how to build their new shelters. However, while Ty would appreciate Van voting for her, I don't believe that Ty agrees with her own argument at the end. She sees running prosecution as her job, one she will do to the best of her ability. She also loves being right and loves to be in control. At the end of the trial, though, she wasn't happy to win, even if it meant she was right. Meanwhile, Melissa is basically Shauna's sidekick. That backwards hat does not serve a dual purpose as a thinking cap. Melissa wants Shauna to like her so badly, and the thing she loves most about Shauna is her strength, her ability to survive, to persevere, to intimidate. Melissa wants a piece of that power, just as much as she wants Shauna. We saw a Hamlet reference last episode, but Melissa is giving some real Lady Macbeth vibes at the moment. Shauna, lastly, is just angry in general. Not to mention they keep asking her to relive one of the worst days of her life, the day she lost her baby, in front of everyone for the sake of the trial, a day that Ben was wholly unhelpful for. Even without the general anger, though, going against a Nat simply for the sake of a power play is motivation enough. Despite what she says under oath, Shauna hates that Nat was picked as the Antler Queen after everything Shauna endured, after everyone she lost. Usurping the throne from Nat would make Shauna thrilled. I think this also shows us a major difference between Ty and Shauna. Ty wants Ben to be found guilty because that's what she believes happened, and even when she stops wholly believing that, will still be professional about the job she has given herself. She uses facts and testimony to try and get him convicted. Even when the vote starts to shift, Ty isn't thrilled. In fact, when Van votes, she isn't exactly happy that Van is on her side. She wants Van to make her own opinions, not just follow whatever Ty is doing. Shauna, meanwhile, eventually sways the vote through intimidation and force. She shouts at the girls trying to elicit an emotional response, and after long enough, in combination with Lottie influencing Travis and Akila's votes, they all give in to her show of force. Ty never would have kept arguing after the trial, because to Ty, being the leader is about trying to make the choices that are best for the group. In the first episode of the season, she's upset with Natalie because she thinks Natalie isn't good at de-escalating situations. Shauna's mad at Natalie because she's jealous and power-hungry. Travis, despite being in the episode's title, doesn't do a whole lot, though we do see him with a rather cryptic piece of art that seems to be foreshadowing what will happen to Coach Ben. I'm thinking this is going to be a big reveal at the end of the season for a kind of extreme sacrifice. We know that this season is going to have a lot of goodbyes thanks to the marketing and the end of the episode alone, so the idea of all the lying figures in front being sacrificed for something or someone else seems in line. I could see it as a type of ritual they start in the wilderness that maybe Ty tries to bring back in the present in her desperate chase to save the woman she loves. I also think that kind of connection would help with the disjointed nature of the past and present stories really coming back together like the end of season 2, where I thought the parallel of Natalie letting someone die for her versus her dying for someone else was pretty powerful and well motivated, especially with all the talk over looking after something innocent that led up to it. I just want something similar for season 3 as well, that also holds true to the season's promise to be gorier. Also, Travis was not drunk this episode. He was barely in it. Why didn't they just title it 12 Angry Girls and Travis? Or, 12 Angry Girls. But I digress. One tragic thing about the episode is that the two people who have the strongest belief in Coach Ben's innocence also both unwillingly lead to his downfall. Misty is the one to tell Shauna that Nat is hiding the fact that Ben's out in the woods from the rest of the girls in an effort to get on the girls' good side after she felt Natalie was trying to trick her, which to be fair, she was, but Natalie only had the best intentions. Natalie is also the one to decide that they should be doing 2/3 majority instead of just plain majority. If neither of these things happened, then Coach Ben would have had a much easier time being found innocent. Also, it's crazy that they wouldn't do anonymous voting for this. I mean, come on, Your Honor. Shauna's crazy. I wouldn't go against her either. There's also supposed to be a failed rescue attempt this season, which could come as a result of Shauna's bid for power. Both Shauna and Lottie aren't as interested as the rest of them in returning to civilization because they've become very different people out in the wilderness. If Shauna's the leader and help arrives, it wouldn't be in Shauna's best interest. And since Shauna only really works off of her own self-interest, that means everybody else would just be along for the ride. We see Lottie notice that Shauna and Melissa are getting closer, and she doesn't exactly seem pleased with this information. Lottie knows that Shauna is in a bad place emotionally, to put it lightly. Lottie's shown to be very empathetic with others, so is probably concerned about how these two would even handle a relationship, though Lottie does seem to be siding with Shauna more than Nat after having flashes of the wilderness again after Shauna stares her down. Lottie is still on Shauna's side, but without a doubt skeptical of her intentions in a relationship with Melissa. Lottie yearns to have the connection that she once had back to the wilderness. When Misty puts her on the witness stand, she questions Lottie about the fact that Lottie could be angry about the wilderness choosing Nat instead of her for the leader. Lottie never wanted to be the leader in the first place, but she does miss her connection to the wilderness. It's why she keeps egging on Travis and Akila. She wants to experience the wilderness vicariously through them. So what's gonna happen to Coach Ben next episode? He's dead as hell for starters, but by what means? Shauna proposes burning him alive in the promo for the next ep, but this could just be a pitch. After all, there's no fire imagery shown. There is, however, a whole lot of guns, especially Ty and Shauna holding the rifle. I think that Ty is going to be put in charge of executing him, and then she may not be able to go through with it, leading to Coach Ben trying to escape, possibly holding Melissa hostage, which leads to Shauna being the one who ends up killing him. In all the shots of Ty, we never see her finger on the actual trigger itself. Okay, I think I can finally transition into talking about the other half of the show now. Not gonna lie though, most of the adult timeline this episode was not my favorite, and I normally love the adult timeline. However, the plots just felt a bit disjointed and even redundant. That doesn't mean that I don't have a lot to say about it, especially because they killed my favorite character, and I plan on getting justice for her. What the hell, Ashley and Bart? Shauna's brakes failing were revealed to have simply been due to a bad brake booster, which implies that nobody traps Shauna in the freezer as well, especially because the door says, "You're not locked in." Shauna will still absolutely believe that somebody's after her, even if it's not true. We still haven't made any progress on the stalker storyline, or the tape that Callie found. Shauna will probably try and pin the two examples of bad luck she's had recently on a person who didn't have anything to do with them. Also in regard to that freezer, I didn't love the use of Ghost Jackie here. She doesn't really seem to foreshadow anything coming or tie into the current plot worries other than feeding Shauna's irrationality and paranoia. It's fun that Shauna is seeing her in a freezer since she froze to death, but I don't think the dialogue was anything special. Let's talk a bit about Ty and Van before we dive into the murder mystery. One fun parallel to the teen timeline, in an episode that has some of the weakest parallels, is seeing Misty in the past say that Ty only went to the prayer circles because of Van. Now in the present, Ty is using her connection to the wilderness for the sole purpose of keeping Van alive. The scene where they finally get to have their pretzel and carriage ride as promised in season 1 may or may not have made me actually cry. It's so beautiful that they made it out of the wilderness and finally get to have the life they'd always wanted together, but as an audience we know this honeymoon phase, and probably Van being alive in general, is only a small breather in the show of murders and cannibals. I'm definitely still in the Van and Jeff being more adult deaths trained this season. If Jeff's storyline this season is that he's trying to be a better person, then there's nowhere else for him to go other than the ground. When Nat dies, it was because she was acting selflessly, and many times in this show, death is almost a mercy, because that person doesn't have to continue in the suffering that happens to all of them. Finn is also still having bad symptoms, including those shaky hands, and is not on board for the plan to murder random people to keep herself alive. Not to mention that in Simone Kessel's Variety article, she said that she thought the writers may have just wanted to focus on the main 3, not 4. Lottie's low-key, not well-built-up murder reveal at the end of the episode was devastating to me personally. Logically, I know that this is going to finally give all the present day an overarching plot halfway through the season, but still. However, it's so frustrating that Lottie's barely in the episode before her death. It's possible we'll still be seeing Simone Kessel in flashbacks or ghost forms, however, especially because the season finale is when they'll be solving the murder mystery. We're trying to find out who killed Lottie, where, and with what. Since Detective Misty's on the case, she's off of the suspect list for now. We know for a fact that Ty, Van, and Shauna were all in New York at the time of the murder, which gives this trio major suspicions on grounds of them all having definitive opportunity. Shauna has a definite motive, considering she was arguing with Lottie and had a clear hatred towards her for giving Callie Jackie's necklace. Meanwhile, the next episode is literally titled, "Did Ty do that?" And Tice's increasingly brutal methods of keeping Van alive could have made her sacrifice Lottie, or other Ty could have just had enough of the goop sorceress. Van doesn't seem to have a clear motive in this murder yet, nor has she been growing increasingly erratic like Ty and Shauna have been this season. Another clue about Lottie's death is discovering who she was practicing apologizing to on the day of the murder. Considering Lottie completely dismisses Ty on a phone call earlier in the day, and Ty didn't know where Lottie was at yet, makes it decidedly not Ty. She could have been apologizing to Shauna for giving Kelly the necklace, but Lottie didn't exactly seem resentful about that action. Instead of any of the survivors being who she was talking to, I think that Lottie was actually going to apologize to Lisa. Nicole Maines has already said she's returning in Yellowjackets this season, and the only characters she was ever close to were Nat and Lottie, who are both now 6 feet under. I think we'll run into her over the course of the murder investigation, though I highly doubt she'll be the actual killer. Speaking of characters that relate to Lottie but not the rest of them, is that we know an older Malcolm Matthews is set to appear later this season, and is presumably who Taissa is trying to smother to death in the trailer. Did Ty and Misty think that he had something to do with Lottie's murder? Are they tying up a loose end? Originally I envisioned them killing him so Lottie could make bank on that inheritance, but clearly that's no longer the case. Ty might have just decided to smother him after gathering intel, since he was a sitting duck and possibly on the brink anyways, since he was already in the hospital. I think that some of the characters' suspicions as to who the killer is could be just as challenging to their relationships as finding out who the real killer is. Van would definitely think that Ty was the killer. She knows that Ty is getting a little bloodthirsty and started worshipping the wilderness again. Van would also wonder why Taissa wanted to meet back up with her later in the day, instead of the two just hanging out together in New York for the whole time. Callie, meanwhile, would definitely think that it was Shauna. She loved hanging out with Lottie, only for her mom to yell at her and kick her out of their home. Shauna even told Callie this episode that she should never say Lottie's name in their house again. Callie knows that her mom killed Adam, so it wouldn't be a stretch for her to think that she killed Lottie. During the investigation, Misty will probably realize that even if someone didn't kill Lottie, they'll probably all have different pieces of the puzzle that they won't want to give up so easily. In fact, it's highly possible that they all had a small contributing factor in her death. It's of note that up to this point, none of the survivors' deaths have been premeditated murder. Travis died by trying to almost hang himself while Lottie was distracted by Laura Lee's ghost, and Misty was trying to kill Lisa when she killed Nat. If this was a murder, it'd be the first one in the show that was an actual mystery. I think we'll also have more of Ty seeing the man with no eyes, especially in regards to Lottie's death, and whatever other deaths come about this season. That's all the theorizing I have in me for now. I hope that the murder of Lottie makes for good storyline, otherwise I'm not sure how to deal with one of my favorite fictional characters ever dying in such an unemotional cliffhanger. I'm gonna go rewatch Old Wounds again to cope. At least she's alive in my heart. And in the 1997 timeline to drug her friends. See ya, nerds!